So a big win for Chelsea here at Stamford Bridge, 4-0 against Everton. Gary Breen alongside me. I think it's fair to say we weren't expecting that.
We weren't. Well, we've seen flashes of the brilliance of this Chelsea team, bearing in mind the young players, but they've struggled to do it consistently over a 90-minute period. But from start to finish, they were so superior to Everton. I think Ancelotti, coming back to Chelsea, where he's so highly regarded, would be a little bit embarrassed of his team this afternoon.
When I looked at the two starting 11s and I saw a Chelsea midfield without Kante, Jorginho, Kovacic, they had 18-year-old Billy Gilmour making his first Premier League start. You really thought that's an area Everton can attack. But they were totally outplayed in the middle of midfield.
Yeah, you put in Mason Mount there as well, and you're thinking that's lightweight. You think about Gomez at 6'2", 6'3", Tom Davis, real physicality about his performances in midfield. But the reality was that Chelsea three was so good on the ball and moved it so quickly that they looked so cumbersome in midfield, Everton. Ancelotti's persisted with his 4-4-2, which has served this team very well. But I think he's going to look at that situation and think one of the biggest things about 4-4-2 is you've got to have energy and legs to cover the ground, because you don't have that extra man in midfield to help out. You certainly don't have that extra centre-half in the back five to create and protect space. And Everton looks so vulnerable throughout.
You mentioned the stat in commentary that Chelsea now have had through to double figures in players under 21 who've played. They three of them finished the game today with 3 18-year-olds on the pitch. Who's the pick of the bunch out of all those young Chelsea players?
Well, today's performance, it was so impressive, Billy Gilmour. It's the first chance that I got to see him live. Initially started the game at the base of that midfield, which have huge responsibility in terms of being able to play through him, being able to protect two centre-halves, Rudiger and Zuma, who are not at the level you normally associate. So he done that brilliantly. Then it was a second-half substitution where he then was pushed forward into advanced midfield, the 10 area. And he looked no different. He looked so comfortable. So he's certainly a player at 18 years of age. And I'd heard a lot about him as a young player, how hard Chelsea had fought to get him from Rangers. And it's one of the reasons how aggressive they were in that deal, that they're in this transfer ban at the moment, that he looks like he's got a big future.
John Giles was on Thursday night absolutely raving about him, that he hadn't seen a young player come through like this in a long time. How do you know that they're ready to kick on and make that next step? Because Chelsea brought through a lot of young players. I think back to the day of the Steven Gerrard slip, and Callas was 18 and played centre half and was never heard from again. And you thought that day, this guy's going to go on and have a huge future. Are there things you can see of an 18-year-old like Billy Gilmour that suggest actually he's going to be here for the long haul, that he will make it?
I think when you're looking at young players, you certainly want to see if they've got that maturity to play a style of football that's beyond their years. He certainly had that. But I always look about young players and whether or not they came into a team that I was playing, it's whether or not you can trust them and that you see past their age. And if you're giving Billy Gilmour the ball on the edge of his own box and your two centre-halves are splitting, knowing that if he loses it, you're going to concede a goal. If you still have that trust to be able to do that, even when his man is closing him down, then that suggests that he has a big future ahead of him. He's obviously impressing in training, because you're not going to get in this Chelsea team if you're not. And I don't buy into the fact that Chelsea are just playing these young players because Frank thinks it's the right thing to do and he's ticking a box. I genuinely believe that he feels that they are his best players. Now, I know there's so many midfield players missing at the moment, and there's no doubt Kante comes back into that team. Kovacic is playing with a level of consistency and performance we've never seen before from him, even in his Real Madrid days. So he has got a challenge ahead of him, Billy Gilmour, but he's in the right environment to really thrive here in a way that young players of past generations never did. De Bruyne, Mo Salah, they never got the opportunities. Lukaku, these young players are getting the opportunities now and they're taking them.
Mason Mount was exceptional at times, took his goal really well, 6 now for the season, and he's got a bit of everything. He can sweep past players, he can do the simple stuff. Technically he looks brilliant. Is he someone that no matter who they bring in, you see being very much a key part of this Chelsea side for the next few years?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that there's a lot of trust there. Frank Lampard obviously took him to Derby last year, and I think that, and you mentioned a great stat here today, is that he's played so many games this season. He's not
every single game.
Every single game for a young player in the Premier League. Now, there's a lot of these players who are getting their chance this season and are struggling with it in terms of having to go again every 3 or 4 days. I think that season in the Championship, which is the most physically demanding league, has served that young man so well, because he's effortlessly coping with the demands of the Premier League. Don't forget, you have the international breaks. He's able to recharge in a way that you probably don't get in the Championship in terms of the level of games. But I was so impressed. I know it'd been a long time since he got his goal, but the quality to take that ball in half term and get his strike off as early as he did, beat Pickford before he even realised it, was a stunning goal.
What about Everton then? Because we've seen quite a bit of them on off the ball over the last few weeks, and we're really impressed. And really feel they were making big strides, and they were very unlucky to lose at Arsenal. Probably should have beaten Manchester United last week. They fell so flat today. Calvert-Lewin had one chance, but Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison were so peripheral, couldn't get them into the game. How big a job does Ancelotti really face? Like, have we all got a little bit carried away with Everton?
I think, we probably have done in terms of the ability of Ancelotti. Listen, he's a serial winner. We talked about how many trophies, 15 major trophies. So he knows how to produce a winning team. The problem he'll have is that recruitment of that Everton squad over the last 3 or 4 seasons, to be perfectly honest, over all the different managers, has got a lot of players for a lot of money, but there's lacking quality at the top end of the Premier League. They are top 10 players at best, a lot of them, and I think he'll soon realise that, because ultimately, as well as he's done in terms of the bounce coming as a manager, I know it's a new saying that people keep saying, but you're going to react to someone like Ancelotti coming in. He obviously puts his arm around him, gives you confidence, but a big problem that a lot of those players have had is they've reverted to type there and they went missing.
A couple of other things I want to talk to you about for the week ahead. Liverpool, Atletico Madrid, Wednesday night, Champions League, Anfield, under the lights. But Atletico Madrid know how to do it. Does this Atletico Madrid, did they show enough in the first leg that all the problems they've had in La Liga this season, where they haven't looked like the Atletico Madrid of 3-4 years ago, did the first leg show that actually they still have that somewhere within them that they can pull it out when it matters?
They still have that manager, and he sets his team up so well in terms of negating the opposition. But I agree with you. I don't think this is a vintage Atleti team by any stretch of the imagination. And if you think about the reaction to Liverpool players, how incensed they were in terms of how Atletico celebrated at that final whistle as if they'd gone through on the tie. In fact, a lot of Liverpool players were saying they thought they'd won the trophy. So I think they'll be very mindful of that. And then you get the owners of Atletico talking about Anfield as a dated stadium, old-fashioned. I think they're going to get a shock to the system this week. I expect Liverpool to go through.
You think they will win, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Spurs, Leipzig. Do you give Spurs a chance?
No, I don't. Not because of the injury problems, which have a massive effect. Of course they do. Jose Mourinho's talking about how well they played at the weekend, but they don't have a shark in the box in terms of Son or Harry Kane, so it's difficult to win games. But I think the energy with which Leipzig play, Nagelsmann as a manager who probably puts a lot of pressure on Jose Mourinho and goes along the lines of, listen, that he may be a spent force. I don't believe that. But I think he's having difficulties at Tottenham, and I think they'll have far too much energy for Spurs.
Troy Parrott must have breathed a bit of a sigh of relief yesterday when Jose Mourinho went on one at Tanga and Ndombele, and he was very much the focal point of his anger for his first half performance. What's gone on with Troy Parrott? Like, do you look at it and say, here's an 18-year-old and Mourinho's right to hold him back, and he's only been in England for just over 18 months, that maybe he isn't just ready for it, that we're looking through it Irish eyes, that we feel he should be given his chance? Or has he gone a bit far over the last few weeks with the way he's spoken about him?
Well, I can only judge Parrott on what I've seen. Now, Mourinho's been quite vocal on saying, listen, everyone's championing his cause. I haven't even seen him play. I have seen him play, and quite a lot actually. But the one that really impressed me about him was certainly in their pre-season games against Inter Milan, against Manchester United. Now, I know they're pre-season games, but regardless of that, he goes up against Smalling, who tries to bully him, lean on him, he couldn't do it, tries to do it again, he flicks the ball over his head, he can look after himself physically, done it likewise against some grisly centre-halves of Inter Milan. So I could see the qualities there. I heard about him coming through the Irish ranks and stuff like that. But it's still a massive jump from going from that level to leading the line in a top Premier League team. Now, Jose Mourinho doesn't have a history of bringing young players through. The reason being, because more often than not, he's managing the best teams in the world. So he's got massive competition. But listen, in terms of what he's saying about him...
Why keep talking about him?
Because it's Jose Mourinho, isn't it? It's to try and deflect in terms of his performances, not his performances, but his team's performances that have been so lacking. He wants to keep banging the drum about the fact he doesn't have his centre forwards. Listen, everyone, we know you don't have your centre forwards. But Chris Wilder has a Sheffield United team who've got 4 centre forwards who don't really score, but they all contribute, and they all got a team up in a place where you never expected them to. So it's just typical Mourinho, isn't it?
It's great to spend so many Sundays with you, Gary, but I do fear in the current world that we live that over the coming weeks, if one of us gets coronavirus, the other one's going to end up getting it. There's a big meeting taking place tomorrow with the Premier League and with British officials about what happens. We see in Italy that they've gone from playing games behind closed doors to cancelling matches completely to quarantining entire sections of the country. Yeah. It seems as though from even people behind the scenes at Everton saying that they expect at some stage between now and the end of the season games will be played behind closed doors. Do you think is that the right thing to do? That if supporters shouldn't be congregating together, that rather than calling the games off, they should still go ahead and play the games?
Well, listen, I think that the powers that be and the people who really know the facts in terms of how quickly this can spread must make the decision. I can't really say that, but you're right. There's been a lot of talk this last couple of weeks about anyone over the age of 70 not should stay at home as such, to the knock-on effect that Roy Hodgson's even come out and said, well, listen, I'm 72, and if you're going to not allow me to come to the stadium, we've got a problem as such. But it's just a difficult thing to comment on. I just don't know what way it's going to go.
All right, great stuff as always today, Gary.
Thank
Talk
you.
to you soon.